I've been getting into some arguments, and I've lost about 300 followers over this particular argument over Syria and the no-fly zone. Syria. So the good news, let's start with the good news, right? So the talks stopped between the high-level talks, diplomatic talks between the United States and Russia over Syria stopped as of last Saturday, but they're scheduled to take up again on this Saturday. So that's an accomplishment, right? We need everyone to be talking at the table. They had completely suspended 9 days ago. But it's a great thing. The ceasefire is no more. We walked away from the table, but we're going back to the table. So they're going to be meeting in Switzerland this weekend, and they're trying to find a resolution to this 5-year-long, 250,000 deaths, 11 million people displaced. We have to find a resolution. Is it something that the United States is required to fix? Most people in progressive land would say no, right? Because we've intervened too much across the globe and we've caused more trouble than we have good. And that's the general sentiment for most progressives. But so some of the context of the meetings, so this U.S. State Department said that Kerry would discuss a multilateral approach to ending the crisis, including a sustained cessation of violence and the resumption of humanitarian aid deliveries. But in terms of intervention in general, and this is where we kind of get into the argument, the U.S. has struggled for a long time to find moderate allies in Syria. And those that are capable, like the Kurds, they bring additional problems to the table due to their own regional ambitions, right? A lot of people say, are we going to just arm the Kurds? Well, arming the Kurds has significant implications when you consider they want to become a state. They want to have sovereignty. They want to be recognized. And their territory crosses over so many nations that an armed Kurdish faction or resistance really poses territorial threats to other nations, which is one of the number one reasons the United States has not armed the Kurds. And the last one, like despite the antipathy towards the Assad regime, America's main focus in Syria is our fight against ISIS. And despite the humanitarian crisis that we see, as tragic as it is, it's not to the point where we're willing to get involved to end the civil war because of the humanitarian crisis. All right, so General Joseph Dunford, chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, when asked about a no-fly zone in front of Congress, he said that right now, for us to control all of the airspace in Syria would require us to go to war against Syria and Russia. Russia controls Syrian airspace. And some stats on what they have going on here. They've deployed highly capable S-400 air defense missiles and radars at its base at its Syrian base. It has brought in S-300 missiles, which have an additional capability against other missiles. Russian warships in the Mediterranean could add to the air defense shield. And for a no-fly zone to be instituted, the U.S. generally would destroy enemy air defenses from day one. So we already know the general premise is that a no-fly zone in Syria would require conflict with Russia. I'm going somewhere. So before we're going to finish, but I want to give you the rest of these stats. So on the flip side, a no-fly zone doesn't give us any guarantees, right? There's plenty of damage that can be wrought through tanks, through ground troops, through through other means. So the no-fly zone doesn't really guarantee the results that we want, but it's really about imposing a cost. It's really about the United States letting Russia and Syria know that they're not going to just continue to bombed the hell out of half of Aleppo and killed thousands of civilians without any repercussions from the international community. All right. So now the bigger argument is one that cost me quite a few followers, but it's cool. I don't agree with the fear mongering that I'm seeing from the left that automatically goes from no-fly zone, World War III, right? No-fly zone, nuclear holocaust. And we have embraced this oversimplified view of international relations, of just rational actors, of getting engaged with Russia. Because just like you have to ask us, why would we get involved to the extent where we are going to institute a no-fly zone? Is it in our best national interest? And if it's not in our best national interest, we're not going to do it. And so the next step is the humanitarian crisis significant enough for us to go in and risk a war with Russia? And so far, the answer has been no. So far, our approach has been hands off to a certain extent, right? Hands off to the extent where we're not turning the tide of the war in any direction. That being said, at what point will people concede that a hands-off approach absolutely means that two things? One, we allow Russia to have their way in Syria, which is fine, right? There's no big, but the second point is this, that the civil war will rage on in the foreseeable future. And as that war rages on, 250,000 people have been killed in 5 years, 50,000 people a year. Over the next 4 years, before the end of the first term of the next president, it's possible if people die at the same rate, there's going to be about 200,000 more deaths. That means there's going to be 200,000 more opportunities for images of dead bodies to be splashed across social media, of young children drowning, trying to escape the region, of children with blood all over their faces, in shock, to be displayed across the United States, and to strike up this political will to get involved. And the reason I'm saying it from that direction is because we have this huge assumption that America can simply not be engaged globally, and that if we just don't get engaged globally, that everything will be all right. And that is the most ridiculous assumption there is. The United States, whether it's manufactured or not, consent will come to the United States that we're not going to sit idly by and allow this to happen without us getting involved. I just don't see it. I don't see it because we're in a different era. We're not in the era where people are disconnected, where the masses are disconnected from the atrocities. We can see the atrocities real time. We can see the picture of the boy who was covered with blood. That picture got to my computer in less than 30 minutes from the time it was taken. Like we are so connected to those atrocities that it's not going to be tenable for America to just sit back for 4 more years and watch 200,000 more people die. Now, I set that up for this question. If we're not going to do a no-fly zone, what is your solution? And that is the number one thing that people got mad at. They got mad at me because I called out Jill Stein, for this fear mongering around nuclear war. No-fly zone equals nuclear war. That's not the case. That's not necessarily the case. That makes so many unnecessary and faulty and erroneous assumptions that it is below someone that we expect to bring a rational conversation to the national stage. If you firmly believe that, then you are required to unpack that for us and explain step by step, not to just fearmonger and say no-fly zone, nuclear war. And then more importantly than that, I think most of us can agree we don't need to do a no-fly zone in Syria. But the biggest question of the day is, what are you going to do to actually end the humanitarian crisis that's happening right now in Syria? Or are you saying we just going to sit back and don't get involved, right? Because I just hate incomplete thoughts. I hate when people don't give you the full picture, because saying we're going to sit back and not get involved equals about 200,000 lives over the next four years. Let's talk about the ramifications, because us pulling out completely does not end anything. The United States ending our arms sales that are getting there to Syria does not end it, because someone else is going to pick up the slack. Freezing accounts does not end it. It may end things in the long run, but it does not end this civil war that is in front of us every single day. So we agree on no-fly zone. I don't agree that it necessarily leads to nuclear war, but I agree that we shouldn't do it. The question is, what are we going to do? And I'm very, very disappointed that in the left, people that I roll with on a regular basis, people who complain about fear mongering from Democrats, to engage in reductionism and fear mongering without exploring and unpacking the reality that Russia is a rational actor. The United States is a rational actor. Hillary Clinton is a rational actor. And for you to jump from, and this is, I expect more. And I hate to be the guy lecturing. I feel like I'm lecturing tonight, but whatever. I expect more. I expect more from us who think. You're starting to sound like Hillbots. You're starting to sound like Donald Trumpkins, right? Whatever they call themselves, trumpeter, whatever the hell they call themselves. When you reduce something down to this person is just evil and she wants to start World War III, that is not a logical argument, and it does not belong in our circles, especially because we sit, I do too, on our high horses and we critique whenever somebody brings us fatuous, illogical arguments. And to do that is just completely illogical. It's completely illogical. That means that you believe that Hillary Clinton's number one goal in life is to destroy humanity. And if you believe that, then tell me, how are you different than Hillary Clinton's trolls who think that your number one goal in life is to destroy America and to fall in love with Putin and to go to Russia? I expect more from the left because we have more to give, and we can unpack. We can have the conversation, at least have the conversation to explain, Jill Stein, why do you believe that Russia's response to a no-fly zone for humanitarian purposes will be a hot war with the United States? And why do you believe that a hot war automatically triggers a World War III? Have that conversation for the world to hear, to forward the conversation, instead of just saying, well, do you want nuclear war? No, that's not, I don't do that. And if you do that, you can do better. You should do better, because we're supposed to be the logical ones.